3 spine-chilling true Cornfield horror stories. Sinister secrets revealed in the haunted fields. Sarah had hoped for peace in Maplewood, but whispers of terror lurked beneath its calm surface. The quaint little town, once painted as a beautiful sanctuary for her and her son, felt increasingly like a trap. As she settled into their cottage by the cornfield, she began to notice a heaviness in the air, a smothering dread that seemed to cling like fog. It was more than just the recent disappearances. This place held secrets, dark, spiraling secrets that pulsed under the very soil of the cornfield. "Mom, I can see the corn for miles," Tommy exclaimed one sunny day, his little frame silhouetted against the bright blue sky. But as he ran off to chase a stray ball, Sarah's unease grew. She remembered her neighbors' nervous glances and hushed voices. They spoke of rituals under the crescent moon, of stories that chilled more than just blood. The cornfields didn't just grow food. They seemed to guard a sinister past. Her first encounter with Mr. Thompson didn't help dispel her fears. The local farmer with a long beard and even longer silences had a way of watching the corn that made her skin crawl. His eyes weren't just observing. They seemed to pierce through to something hidden within. "You can't trust the field, Sarah," he had warned, almost too quietly, leaving her with thoughts racing as she tried to decipher his warning. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. That evening, clouds rolled in, dark and heavy, wrapping the sky in a foreboding shroud. When Tommy wandered into the cornfield after a wayward ball, silence fell like a hammer. "Tommy, come back!" she screamed, heart racing. The wind roared in reply, tossing the corn like a tempest. Minutes felt like hours until he finally emerged from the shadows, his eyes glassy, words purring like a coiled snake. "I saw them, Mom. They told me to come play." Chills crawled down her spine. "What did you see?" she asked, trying to stay calm. But Tommy's smile was off, stretching too wide, revealing something not entirely him. Panic rose as the air thickened with an electric charge, and shadows darted just beyond the edge of vision. Was it her imagination, or did the corn shift ever so slightly as if alive? Sarah stumbled backward, tugging Tommy closer, fear igniting a predator instinct within her. The unsettling gaze of Mr. Thompson lingered in her mind, whispering warnings about the field. Her heart thudded like a drum as she glanced back toward the dark maze. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, but the tight smiles of the townsfolk, their hidden glances, and the inexplicable danger in the whispers made her question her safety more than ever. With the storm now raging, Sarah felt a growing sense of urgency. How could she protect Tommy from whatever dark force stalked the fields? She needed answers, but who could she trust? As she turned back to the cornfield, the wind seemed to howl in laughter, and she realized they were not alone. Something was waiting, watching. The corn swayed ominously behind them, and the air grew suffocating. A distant voice called from the depths of the field, a beckoning, haunting whisper that sent her heart into a tailspin. What would they uncover in the dark heart of Maplewood? As they stood on the precipice of fear, Sarah clutched her son's hand tighter, understanding that their fight was only just beginning. The rain fell in sheets, rattling the windows of their cottage as shadows danced on the walls. Thunder rumbled ominously, a growl from the depths of the sky that mirrored Sarah's rising panic. Tommy stood eerily still, transfixed by something unseen in the flickering darkness. "Mom, they want to come inside," he whispered, his voice trembling with excitement rather than fear. "Who, Tommy? Who wants to come inside?" Her attempts to steady her voice failed. Her heart raced. She scanned the room, looking for an escape. "The ones in the corn, they play games, Mom. They said." His words trailed off, swallowed by the booming thunder. "Tommy, I need you to listen to me. We're going outside, right now." Sarah grabbed his hand, but he resisted. His little face contorted with something she feared was more than childlike curiosity. "No, they told me to stay. They don't like when you come near." The lightning illuminated his wide-open eyes, and the innocence within faded for a moment. Fear twisted in Sarah's stomach. She was now battling against an unseen force that had already invaded her son's mind. Before she could wrestle him away from the door, a bright flash cut through the darkness, momentarily hot like a beacon, and then the power went out, plunging them into pitch blackness. The only sound was the pounding rain against the roof and Tommy's labored breathing next to her. "Mom?" he ventured, small and distant. "Tommy, hold my hand tight. Don't let go." But it felt like darkness was seeping into her bones, as if the storm had summoned something vile. She could feel it pressing against the very walls of their home. In a whirl of desperation, she edged closer to the door, edge of her vision catching movement outside. The wind howled, and in that stormy chaos, the cornfield emerged for a brief moment to her awareness. It swayed in a sinister rhythm, whispering secrets meant for her alone, taunting her like a malevolent friend. Sarah pushed the door open and was met with the stench of damp earth and something sweeter, rot mixed with anticipation. She hesitated, the darkened expanse of corn towering like spirits ready to claim them. "Mom, let us go back," Tommy cried, but she stepped out into the cold, pulling him along. The ground felt spongy beneath her feet, unnaturally alive. "Listen to me, we can't let them win," she hissed, fear and anger mingling into one. "Do you hear that? We're gonna walk straight through, together." They moved forward, carefully navigating through the rows, but quick glances into the field revealed figures hidden behind the stalks, their features obscured. The alluring whispers spoke of games, of eternal fun, of never leaving. "Tommy, don't look," Sarah said, her voice stiff as she pulled him closer, pain edging its way into her chest. She could feel the pull of the corn, dragging at her feet like hands demanding to be obeyed. Shadows darted around her, flitting just beyond the periphery of her vision, enhancing the feeling of being watched. "Let us play hide and seek, Mommy," Tommy said suddenly, his voice distant and sung with an echo she couldn't place. She turned to him, her insides churning. "No, Tommy, we have to keep moving." But he was already lifting his hand, eyes glossed over with a glaze that shook her to the core. As if struck, she stumbled, fear now clawing at every last component of her rational thought. The shadows came closer, and a flicker of recognition sparked like lightning in her soul. She was losing him. This wasn't Tommy anymore. "Let us go, Tommy." She yanked on his arm, but he didn't budge. He just smiled wider, brighter. And then, out of the depths of the field, something surged forward, shapes stepping out of the darkness with silent steps. They merged from the corn, forming into silhouettes against the storm-tossed sky. "Mommy, they want to play." Tommy's voice rang clearer, brighter, while hers faded into an insistent whisper. The figures advanced, their shapes distorting as they approached, a chorus of excited laughter swirling in the icy wind. Sarah's heart thundered against her ribs. She was losing control. "Tommy, come back," she screamed, as panic consumed her. But who was she screaming for? Amid the thunderclap, the figures lunged, shadows eclipsing everything. Their whispers wrapped around her, tempting, taunting, beckoning, and then they were gone, lost in the golden sea of corn, leaving only the sound of the storm in her ears. What had she stumbled into? A trap? A nightmare? Desperation clawed at her chest. But in the whispering calm that was left behind, the raucous laughter reverberated in the air as Sarah tightened her grip on the last vestige of hope. She could not lose Tommy. She wouldn't. Yet, as she took another step into the field, the corn whispered back, a chorus announcing, "Welcome to the game." What would Sarah sacrifice to escape the darkness? The question lingered in the suffocating night. The silence exploded around her, a suffocating blanket that pressed in tight. As the shadows melted back into the corn, Sarah felt an icy hand at the base of her spine. The absence of sound was more terrifying than the storm's fury. "Tommy!" she yelled again, heart pounding, but only the wind replied, mockingly, swirling the leaves as if they were laughing. The way those shapes had moved, it wasn't human. She had to fight this. "Let us play." Tommy's voice called again, but it was strained, a garbled echo that made her blood run cold. "Tommy, please, we have to go." She turned in circles, looking for him, but the rows of corn stretched endlessly, each stalk twisting like fingers reaching toward the sky. Panic surged in her chest as she thought of him, lost somewhere in this maze of whispers. As her breath quickened, she felt the earth shift beneath her feet, the ground rotting like the remains of something long dead. She stumbled back, feeling the oppressive weight hovering around her. They were out there, watching. She imagined their eyes glistening in the dark, hungry. Another burst of laughter exploded from the cornfield. A chorus of voices intertwined with her son's sweet tone, coaxing her deeper into their arms. "Mommy, I'm over here." Her body reacted, propelling her forward. She ripped through the curtains of corn, each step heavier than the last, as a sinister energy wrapped around her like tendrils, seeking to entrap her spirit. "Tommy!" she cried again, desperation fueling her movement. She could not succumb. She wouldn't. Suddenly, a figure stepped between the rows. Not Tommy. A child, pale, gaunt, with eyes that glowed with an unearthly light. It smiled, a grin that split its face, revealing teeth far too sharp for a human. "Come play with us," Sarah sang, voice dripping with mockery. "Tommy wants you to join the fun." She recoiled, instinct screaming at her to run, to retreat from the evil masquerading as innocence. The air thickened, a choking sensation that clawed at her throat. "Stay away," she shouted, but the creature stepped closer, swirling with shadows, and she felt the pull, the gravity of its invitation wrenching her heart. "Just walk into the corn. It's safe here." No, this wasn't safety. This was a trap. The realization was a slap to her senses. She couldn't let them take her. If they got her, they would keep her, just like they had taken Tommy. Biting back horror, she turned on her heel and charged deeper into the field, ignoring whispers promising her a sweeter escape. Each row felt longer, alive with a pulse, as if the corn itself was writhing against her touch. She could hear faint giggles from all directions, slithering behind her, mocking her escape. "Tommy!" she called out, clinging to her sanity, heart racing like a drumbeat in the dark. "I'm coming for you." Suddenly, she spotted him, a flash of yellow raincoat through the swaying stalks. Her heart soared and crashed like stormy waves. She lunged toward it, hoping against hope this was real, not another trick of the shadows. "Mommy!" he yelled, his voice electrifying her spirit. She broke into a sprint, limbs burning with exhaustion, tears blurring her vision. Just as she reached for him, the ground quaked beneath her, and the figures emerged again. They surged from the rows of corn like a dark tide, the laughter of children morphing into a haunting cacophony. "Not so fast." The shadows screeched, voices a chilling mix of childlike glee and menacing seduction. She grabbed Tommy's hand, squeezing tight, but an unseen force yanked him back. "Mommy, help me," he screamed, his face twisted with terror. It was him, it was really him, but how could she protect him from this? "Tommy!" She fought against the tide, clawing toward him as he vanished into the corn. The laughter twisted, echoing her fears. What was she willing to surrender to reclaim her son, to escape the grip of the game? As she fought against the shadows, a dark realization crept into her mind. What if the price was herself? The corn whispered a promise of a horrific price, one that echoed in her very being. What? Mother would go to the end of the earth to save her child? Would she gamble her soul? In that moment, she knew. The storm was far from over. The ground trembled beneath her as Sarah struggled to hold onto Tommy's hand. Panic clawed at her throat, each scream from her son slicing through her resolve. The figures surged forward, shadows twisting and writhing with malicious intent. She felt their gaze boring into her back, an insatiable hunger that turned her stomach. "Don't let go," she shouted, the fear spilling from her like a hot tide. She could see him, really see him, trembling and wide-eyed, reaching for her. But he was trapped, pulled by invisible strings of the corn sorcery. The laughter grew louder, more frenzied, wrapping around her, the voices echoing like a nightmarish lullaby. Fragments of phrases swirled about her mind. "Join us, stay forever." The air felt thick, suffocating, and time stretched, each second feeling like an eternity. "Mommy, I'm scared." Tommy's voice broke her focus, snapping her back to the present. She had to do something, anything, to pull him free. Ignoring the tugging forces of the corn behind her, she leaned forward, ready to risk everything. "Hold on, Tommy." She pulled with every ounce of her strength, bracing for the potential backlash from the shadows. The corn was alive. It hissed and crackled as if it were a living organism, tightening around her in a grip that felt like steel. "Mommy." His voice was a mere whisper, panic trickling still from his lips. The creature with the glowing eyes emerged closer, mirroring her actions, reaching for Tommy with its gaunt hands. She wanted to scream, to tear away from this horror, but her body felt sluggish, trapped in its sinister dance. She held onto Tommy's hand with white-knuckled determination, gasping at the pressure in her chest. "I won't let them take you." The shadows shrieked in response, dragging her deeper into their embrace. Her feet slipping in the muddy earth, roots breaking free in a chaotic uprising. The ground beneath her was sinking, rotting, the smell of decay mingling with the sweet perfume of desperation. A twig snapped, and she whipped around, catching a glimpse of strange, hollow eyes peeking through the corn, waiting, watching, wanting. The figures danced back, retreating but closing in on her spirit, trying to break her resolve. "Tommy." With a fierce tug, she yanked him toward her, feeling the burn in her muscles, and the howling laughter crescendoed around them, mocking their escape. The field seemed alive with malice, the stalks grinding together, whispering promises of despair. But Sarah was a mother. Driven by instinct, she slapped at the shadows, pushing past the suffocating dread, tearing through the corn that seemed to want to entangle her, suffocate her. And then silence. One horrifying heartbeat, then another, before something shifted in the air. The shadows pulled back, but not away. They bided their time, watching, waiting as the corn whispered secrets too dark to comprehend. "Mommy?" Tommy's voice quivered, and she glanced at him, her heart racing. He was slipping into the corn, but she tugged him back just as another wave of shadowy figures burst forth, screeching their chilling laughter. They clawed at everything, reaching for her again. "Run, Tommy," she shouted, forcing him to move, feeling the strange force push against her from all sides. They stumbled together, breathless, hearts pounding as they barreled through the maze of corn, seeking an exit, a flicker of hope in this living nightmare. Every step felt directed, as if the earth beneath conspired against them. "Mommy," his voice echoed in her mind, a fragile tether in this suffocating darkness. Suddenly, she spotted a gap, a thin line of light cutting through the oppressive darkness. It beckoned her like a siren, a ghostly, luminous promise swaying on the edge of reality. "Over there, we can make it," she shouted, her heart hammering with trembling hope. But as they dashed forward, shadows surged again, faster this time, their collective malice threatening to engulf them both. "No, don't take my son," she screamed, desperation leaking into every word. Just then, the malicious figures released a horrifying cry, as if an unseen storm had been unleashed. The moment of hope spiraled into terror once more. The ground shifted violently beneath them, and she realized the cornfield was not simply a maze. It was a trap, a monstrous, pulsating creature wanting to devour their very essence. "Sarah, help!" Tommy's voice faded, a haunting note enveloped by the laughter of the corn. And in that instant, just before the darkness swallowed them whole, she understood the true price of the game they were forced to play. What lay beyond that veil of shadows? Would she escape with her son? Or were they doomed to join the cursed echoes of the corn? As the shadows closed in, the storm began again. This time, the thunder rumbled with a ferocity that promised chaos. The moment Sarah thought they might break free, the ground shook violently, and the shadows surged forward again, a churning mass of blackness spilling forth like a grotesque tide. Her heart thundered in her chest. "Hold on, Tommy." She yanked him closer, her breath coming in ragged gasps, desperation clawing at her throat as panic crested and collapsed like waves crashing on a jagged shore. They stumbled into the light, the tiny gap that had seemed so inviting now morphed into a haunting glare, revealing the true horror of the cornfield. The stalks twisted into grotesque faces, grinning madly, their eyes hollow as they reached out with gnarled hands, grasping for the warmth of life. "Keep moving," she shouted, then turned, only to face an even worse nightmare. The ground itself roiled as if in pain, clawing at her feet like hands desperate to pull her under. Had the very soil turned against them? "Mommy!" A choking cry ripped from Tommy's lips. He was slipping. Her grip faltered as she gazed down into his terrified eyes, shimmering with unshed tears. The grotesque figures danced around them, their laughter echoing in a frenzy, a cacophony that vibrated against her skin. "Fight it!" she screamed, but the corn's hold was too strong, a pulsing wave that beat against her resolve. Shadows grasped at her arms, sliding against her skin with a coldness that made her want to scream. "Run, Tommy!" she shrieked, pushing him forward even as the corn tried to pull him back. They dashed forward, fear giving them strength. But each footfall felt heavier, every stride a battle. Just as they almost passed the gap in the corn, a shriek pierced the air, loud, desperate, filled with rage. The shadows coiled tighter, and Sarah stumbled, glancing back to see the creature with glowing eyes looming larger than before. "Not today," she breathed, digging deep, finding a flicker of strength. They surged forward again, her pulse sinking with the thrum of impending doom. Could they make it? Their desperate push toward the light showed no signs of easing. It warped under the crushing weight of darkness behind them, flickering like an old movie, threatening to die out at any moment. "Mommy, please!" Tommy's voice reached her through panic and dread. Suddenly, the ground shuddered violently, rupturing beneath them. It felt alive, like a beast waking from a long slumber. Roots and vines snaked upward, wrapping themselves around her legs, dragging her down. "No!" she fought, twisting, tearing free for long enough to grip Tommy, whisking him close as her feet were ensnared by roots that pulsed like veins. Then she saw it. The gap had changed, the light blinding but cruel, now a doorway, and beyond it something darker. A writhing mass of shadow reached through, sensing their struggle, eager for their essence, for their screams. "Jump!" she yelled, forcing her mind to widen for the glimmer of hope. They needed to leap, to trust the unknown. Without thinking, she hurled Tommy toward the light, her own footing slipping away as it opened wider, beckoning her like a maw of horror. "Mom!" he cried, reaching back as the shadows clawed at her arms. "No!" The space around her crackled, the smell of burnt earth filling her lungs. She yanked free, pushing with every ounce of maternal will she had left. The echoes of laughter now morphed into something sinister, a blend of promises and threats that made her heart race. In one breathless moment, she lunged forward, desperate to reach Tommy, ready to cast herself into the unknown. The shadows shrieked, their cold breath washing over her. Would she make it through this horrifying threshold? And what waited for them on the other side of fear's door? As she reached for her son, an unearthly roar erupted, shaking the very roots of the ground beneath her. "Tommy!" The last echoes of darkness hissed, teasing what was still to come. What horrors lay still unseen, waiting just beyond that gap. The darkness swallowed them whole. Time ceased to exist as Sarah pushed through the light, a brutal warmth that felt both alien and familiar. She clutched Tommy tightly, their bodies colliding against an unseen barrier as they stumbled forward. The shrieking winds faded, replaced by a heavy stillness. The absence of sound sent a shiver through her spine. "Are we safe?" Tommy panted, his small face pressed against hers, wide-eyed in a mixture of fear and curiosity. I don't know, Sarah whispered, her voice shaky. She turned around, searching for the monstrous figures, the shadows that had dogged their steps. But the cornfield had vanished, replaced instead by what looked like a decrepit barn, its walls warping under the weight of years. Shadows clung to the corners, crawling up the wooden structure in a dark dance. Stay close, she ordered, pushing the fear down, feeling the cold sweat trickling down her back. The air thickened with unease, writhing around them like the very shadows that had pursued them. Why is it so quiet? Tommy asked, his voice barely a whisper as he stepped forward, eyes scanning the dim interior. No answer came. Instead, a hollow thud echoed through the barn. The sound reverberated off the walls, drawing Sarah's gaze to a corner where only darkness resided. It wasn't empty. It stirred, writhing like a wounded animal. It's behind there, Tommy said, pointing, suspicion evident in his gaze. Stay here, she commanded, the instinct to protect him igniting her senses. She crept toward the shadow, heart racing, every nerve ending alive with danger. Each step felt like stepping deeper into a trap. She reached the edge of the shadow and peered around. The ground rose up, revealing a form fusiform, twisted, amorphous. It looked human, yet something sinister lurked just beneath the surface. Help me, it rasped, a familiar voice resonating in her mind, almost like a memory. Tommy, she turned, panic hitting her squarely in the chest. He moved closer, drawn by the sound, eyes wide in shock absorbing every ounce of dread. Mommy, it sounds like run, she screamed, adrenaline surging as she lunged for her son, grasping him tightly to her side. The shape twisted, its features changing, contorting into something vile. A mirage of her mother's face flickered in the shadows, a woman who had disappeared years ago. The memory was almost comforting, but the presence felt all wrong. Let me go, Sarah, it pleaded, a twisted semblance of love lacing its voice. No, she cried, dragging Tommy back. You're not real. The barn trembled now, shaking as with every heartbeat, the malignant figure pressed closer, resonating chills through the air. Tommy, we have to get out. Just then, the ground beneath them pulsed as if alive, the structures bending and grating against one another. They lurched forward, trying to find the exit, air thick with desperation. But every step back twisted the landscape, collapsing paths behind them. Mommy, Tommy yelled, pointing desperately. A new crack appeared in the wall, gaping wide with the cold breaths of the outside air. But as Sarah darted toward it, something cold wrapped around her ankles, anchoring her to the ground. No, she screamed. Tommy yanked and tugged, but the shadows clung relentlessly, fingers curling around her, attempting to pull her back towards the haunting visage of her mother. She glanced down, her breath hitching at the brutal chill crawling up her legs. It's not her, Sarah shouted, mustering every ounce of her spirit. Fight it. You're my son. Blood-curdling laughter erupted around them, the shadows taunting, mocking. Suddenly, a blinding light flickered back through the crack, pulsing like a heartbeat. Mom! Tommy cried, his small hands grasping hers tighter. Together, with a final heave, she dragged him toward the light, the shadows shrieking in fury, clawing to keep them in the dark. Would they make it through, or would they succumb to the abyss of memory and longing? As they lunged forward, the figure started to dissolve, but not before its threat hummed in the air, vibrant and alive. Your choice is not over, Sarah. In that moment, the ground beneath them erupted, a final grasping of malevolence, and they were swallowed by the light. What awaited them on the other side? Would anything remain of their fight against the darkness? The air crackled with anticipation. They fell through the light, tumbling into a realm that felt both expansive and suffocating. One moment they were running, the next they hit the ground hard. Sarah gasped, pushing herself up. No barn, no shadows. They were in a vast open field, the sun blazing overhead, but the dissonance clawed at her mind. Is this real? Tommy stammered, blinking against the bright light. I don't know, she answered, scanning their surroundings. The field shimmered with golden stalks of corn, but something felt off. The air buzzed with an unsettling energy. Sweat beaded down her temples. The silence was oppressive, suffocating. "Mommy?" Tommy's small voice broke her focus. She turned just in time to see a figure in the distance, silhouetted against the sun, its shape twisting unnaturally, as if attempting to stand free but failing. "Over there," she yelled, fear bubbling in her chest again. "We need to move." They sprinted toward the shadow, heart pounding in rhythm with the frantic breaths escaping her. With each stride, the rustling corn stalks seemed to whisper words she couldn't quite interpret. Were they beckoning, or were they taunting? As they closed the distance, the figure came into focus, a woman wearing a straw hat, hair splayed wildly around her shoulders. Sarah's breath caught. The resemblance was stunning. Was it a trick? "Sarah," the figure said, voice a low drawl that felt like honey dripping sweet but weighted with danger. "I'm finally home." "No," Sarah yelled, halting abruptly. Something inside her twisted painfully. "You're not my mother." The woman's face shifted, reality warping around her features. Sarah felt her heart drop, recognizing the eyes cold, empty. A sinking realization hit her. The shadows weren't confined to the barn. They were everywhere, worming their way into her memories. "Come to me, Sarah," the figure beckoned, finger curling like a vine. "Leave this boy. Forget him. Never." Tommy cried, clutching her arm tightly. "Mom, shut up," the woman hissed, her voice morphing into something guttural, a grotesque version of Sarah's mother. "You know the truth. He holds you back." No, the warmth of the sun faded, and shadows engulfed her like suffocating smoke. Sarah felt Tommy's hand slip from her grasp, fear filling her with ice as she turned. "Tommy!" she screamed, a helpless panic thrumming in her veins. He was frozen, caught in that dark gaze, lips parted in disbelief. "Mommy, I don't understand. It's okay." "Honey, come here," she begged, stretching her hand toward him. But he was anchored by invisible chains, slowly drawn closer to the beckoning figure. In one shot of desperate courage, Sarah dashed forward, shoving aside the lurking fears and shadows that threatened to latch onto her. "You don't know who you are," she shouted, her heart pounding viciously. "You don't belong here." The sun blazed with renewed ferocity, illuminating her path, but the dark figure radiated a chilling calm as its form twisted into something monstrous. "Sarah," it hissed, the glow of the sun flickering in response. "You fear what you can never escape." The blood in her veins turned to ice as she skidded to a halt. This was a game, a perverse manipulation of her memories. "Get away from him," she screamed, yanking him back, but the hold tightened around Tommy. As the shadows began to converge again, pulsating around them like a hungry beast, Sarah felt anger rise, a raw, unyielding fire. Then she heard it, a whisper pulling at the edges of her consciousness. Tommy's eyes were full of confusion, glistening with unshed tears. "Mommy, I can't do this." "No," she cried. "Look at me. Fight it. Remember the good." But as she looked back, the luminous light flickered. Shadows surrounded them, reaching to consume. The whispers grew louder. "Your choice," the mocking voice lingered, resounding in her ears. Would she allow this darkness to take her son? Did she have the strength to defy her own past? The earth trembled beneath their feet, the air thickening, time stalling. Then, the world cracked open once more, a split in reality that promised both escape and terror. Tommy. The choice loomed before them, and whatever path they took would echo through the shadows, marking the way for what was yet to come. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shattered with a deep rumble, and the light fractured into sudden darkness. The vibrant field vanished, replaced by a corridor of shadows, stretching endlessly in both directions. Panic surged within Sarah as she felt the pressure of unseen forces pushing against her. "Where are we?" Tommy's voice was a trembling whisper, reverberating through the emptiness that enveloped them. She could barely see his small figure beside her, his innocence a stark contrast to the looming dread. "I don't know," she cried, grasping his hand tighter, fear twisting in her gut. Just stay close. Out of the corner of her eye something moved. A flicker of motion danced just at the edge of her perception. But whenever she turned her head, it darted away into the dark. Sarah's heart raced. The shadows felt sentient, relentless hungry eyes watching their every move. "Mommy, I'm scared," Tommy whimpered, his voice trembling. "Hold on, we'll find a way out," she managed to say, though doubt clawed at her insides. Each second stretched painfully. The whispers returned, even louder, a cacophony of faint voices that rattled her senses. They called out her name, twisted her memories into nightmarish echoes. "Sarah, you let him into your heart, now choose." The words buzzed like angry bees, relentless and maddening. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, trying to shut out both the voices and the suffocating darkness. She recalled the warmth of her son, the joy they had shared, a fleeting glimpse of a life before shadows took over. "Mom!" Tommy screamed suddenly, and she opened her eyes just in time to see him struggling against an invisible force pulling him backward. The shadows twisted around him, dragging him deeper into the darkness. "No!" she shouted, lunging toward him. The darkness pulsed, wrapping around her like a serpent, squeezing the breath from her lungs. "Tommy, fight it! Fight!" He met her gaze, confusion mingling with terror. "I don't know how," he cried out, panic making his voice high-pitched. Sarah felt a surge of despair. She had to save him. Desperate, she squeezed his hand tighter, letting determination burn through her fear. "You're stronger than this. Remember our laughter. Remember the times we played in the park." But the shadows twisted, distorting her words, turning joy into taunting echoes. "He's just a boy, he doesn't understand your past. Come to me, Sarah." The figure from before materialized, its shape flickering in and out like a broken signal, eyes piercing through the darkness, promising something twisted and sinister. With a final push, Sarah yanked Tommy to her side. "You're not my mother. You'll never be her," she shouted, finding a reservoir of courage she didn't know she had. "I will never abandon my son for you." The figure screeched, a sound that rattled the very fabric of the shadowy expanse around them. It recoiled slightly, its form warping into something even more grotesque. "Then you'll face the consequences. Darkness will consume all who defy me." Suddenly, the corridor began to split apart, cracks forming in the dark. Brilliant light spilled from the fractures. Sarah barely dared to breathe. "This way. That light, run." They bolted forward together, the shadows screaming in anguish behind them as they lunged toward the brightness. But as they propelled themselves further, a shattering pain shot through her leg. With a shriek, Sarah fell, her eyes wide with horror as the shadows clawed at her, relentlessly dragging her back. "Mom!" Tommy's desperate cry pierced through the chaos, and as she thrashed against the binds of darkness, everything flooded back to her. "Choose!" The echoes shrieked, mocking her. Sarah realized she had to make a choice, not just for herself but for Tommy. Would she surrender to the darkness, or would she fight to reclaim her past, or worse, risk losing him forever? "Mommy!" he cried, hands reaching for her, but the shadows clawed harder, pulling him away. As she struggled, the blinding light flickered ominously, and Sarah felt the weight of her fate crashing down on her. The very ground beneath them began to crumble, and she caught glimpses of visions, memories dancing just beyond her reach. The light fractured, illuminating the sunken ground where shadows pooled like venom, revealing dark memories from a life she thought she had left behind. Would she sacrifice her own past to secure a future for Tommy, or would the shadows claim them both? "Tommy, hold on," she screamed, but with each heartbeat, the choice closed in, suffocating her. The glow of the light became more distant, along with her fading hope. "Mommy, please." The vortex of darkness loomed larger. In that moment of desperation, a fractured truth thrummed in her mind. Could her love for her son pierce the veil of shadows? And what if the very histories they fought against held the key to their survival? With an anguished scream, she reached deeper within herself, pulling on every ounce of willpower. If she was going down, She would make damn sure the darkness felt every part of her fury. The shadows surged forward, hungrily racing toward her last stand. A final choice loomed as reality itself began to splinter around them. Would she step into the darkness, or shatter it forever? The shadows writhed, eager to consume her. Every cry, every whisper echoed, mingling with Sarah's panic and despair. The darkness encroached like a living entity, pressing in on her from all sides, a suffocating weight that threatened to extinguish every spark of hope. "Tommy!" she screamed, pushing against the cold tendrils wrapping around her. The last flicker of light fought to stay bright, casting long shadows that twisted and morphed into monstrous shapes. Just then, she felt Tommy's tiny fingers slipping from her grip, pulled back by an unseen force. "No, no, no," she shouted, desperation causing her voice to crack. Her heart raced as the screams mixed with the whispers, a terrifying symphony of regret and despair. "Help me." Tommy's voice waned, swallowed by the lurking dread. Each pluck of her son's pleas wrenched at her heart. Time seemed to thicken as she frantically searched for anything that could anchor them in this nightmare. Her mind raced, recalling fragments of their life, laughter echoing in cafes, the smell of popcorn at the carnival. Those memories became a lifeline, tethering her to the light that faded behind them. "Think, remember," Sarah shouted at the shadows. "Tommy, focus on us. Focus on happy." But the voices surged louder, drowning her words. "You've lost him, you've lost everything." No. She would not concede defeat. She could feel the darkness curling around her ankles, tripping her, dragging her down, but she would not relent. She forced herself to recall the joy woven into her memories, her determination rising like a tide. Tommy screamed again, flailing against the calamity around him. "Mommy, I'm scared. Listen to my voice. Follow it," she urged, her heart stretching as wide as it could. "Help me, please." His cry was more desperate, more real, slipping like sand through her fingers. In that moment, a horrible realization slammed into her chest. The darkness was not only pulling her son away, it was trying to erase every moment they had shared. Panic rushed through her veins like fire. "Let him go," she howled, channeling every ounce of love and rage she possessed. "You won't take him. I won't let you." The shadows recoiled, the echoing screeches eerie and unnatural. They hesitated, rippling like water disturbed. She could feel a shift, like a vessel rocked by a storm. "Come to me," Sarah the figure roared, voice slithering like a snake. "Your past holds no power here." "Yes, it does," she screamed, tears blurring her vision, anger igniting a flame inside her. "You will not decide our fate." Suddenly, with an effort that felt impossible, she tore free from the darkness grasp. The shadows hissed like 1,000 serpents deprived of their prey. She dove toward Tommy, who was now just within reach. "Come on," she yelled, grasping his hand with both of hers, pulling him back from the brink. As she locked her eyes onto his terrified face, something inside her shifted, an acceptance of their shared history, which was neither a weakness nor a burden, but a source of undeniable strength. "Trust me," she implored. "We can fight this together." They held onto each other tighter, and Sarah focused on the memories, the warmth of their shared joy, the laughter, the bedtime stories, all the light that had ever existed in her life. Suddenly, a brilliant burst of light shot forth from where they stood. It sent waves of dazzling brilliance through the shadows, illuminating dark corners and twisting the very essence of despair that tried so hard to envelop them. The dark figure recoiled, its horrid visage twisting as if exposed to the sun for the first time. "No, you cannot." But the light expanded, spreading outward, shattering the oppressive weight of darkness, pushing back with relentless force. "Run toward the light," Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging like a tidal wave. With each step forward, the shadows shrieked, clawing and grasping, desperate to keep them imprisoned. "Mommy, don't let go," Tommy cried, his voice breathless but filled with newfound courage. "I want tea," she vowed, gripping him firmly as they surged toward the growing brightness. But just as they reached the frail boundary of the light, something cold wrapped firmly around Sarah's ankle, a last desperate attempt from the shadows. With a surge of sheer will, she twisted free, lunging forward just as the darkness erupted into an anguished howl, echoing through the corridor of shadows. They burst through, collapsing onto solid ground as sunshine poured over them, bathing them in warmth and safety. But even as relief washed over them, a shiver ran down Sarah's spine. Looking back, she found the figure hovering at the edge of the light, lingering on the threshold of reality. "Until we meet again," it hissed, its voice echoing on the wind. The shadows melded back into the earth, retreating but not gone entirely. Uncertainty flickered like a candle flame in the depths of her mind. "What was that?" Tommy asked, his young face pale but gradually brightening under the sun. Sarah struggled to catch her breath, fear intertwining with the fragile relief in her veins. "The fight wasn't over. Nothing, just keep holding on," she murmured, glancing back towards the shadows that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, waiting patiently. But as they began to walk away, a deep rumble echoed through the ground beneath their feet. The darkness was still there, deep, waiting, hungry. What other horrors lurked just beyond the edge of the light? "Tommy, stay close," she whispered, heart pounding anew. Something told her this was only the beginning. The crimson light dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows over the land. Sarah felt a mix of exhaustion and relief wash over her, her breath coming in short gasps as she clutched Tommy's small hand in a vice-like grip. They stood at the boundary of the cornfield, backlit by the fading sun, the night creeping in with its sinister whispers. "Is it done, Mommy?" Tommy asked, his wide eyes searching hers for reassurance. Fear still lingered there, a reflection of the deep uncertainty gnawing at her heart. "It seems like it, but we have to stay vigilant," Sarah answered, steadying her voice even though fear still curled in her stomach. "We don't know how far the darkness reaches, or when it might strike again." They moved forward cautiously, every crackling leaf underfoot a stark reminder of the horrors they'd escaped. But as they walked, a soft rustle in the corn behind them made her freeze, her senses heightened. Something felt off, the energy in the air crackled with a dark intent. Suddenly, the whispers returned, threading through the air like phantom fingers. "Sarah, your choice isn't over, no," she whispered fiercely, fighting back the tide of panic swelling inside her. She could feel Tommy's small body trembling beside her. "Mommy, I'm scared," he murmured again, his voice trembling, and once more, she felt her heart tug painfully. "Stay close to me, my brave boy." She crouched down, meeting his gaze. "What happened in there doesn't define us. Together we can face anything." Tommy's small nod felt like a vital lifeline, a link to a better future. But she knew the darkness would not relent easily. They had faced horrors born of twisted memories and malicious taunts, yet it was only the beginning of a greater battle that lay ahead. As they approached the edge of the cornfield, Sarah's eyes scanned for any movement. The shadows seemed to retreat at the cusp of the field, still lurking but losing their grip. "Let us make it home before nightfall," she urged. But as they stepped into the open expanse, the air grew heavy. "Do you feel that?" Tommy asked quietly. "Yes," she admitted, unease creeping back. It felt as if the very ground beneath them held its breath, the world around them still. The sun hung precariously low, casting elongated shadows that danced against the backdrop of the encroaching twilight. With each step, the weight of uncertainty grew. "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" Tommy's voice trembled, breaking the silent tension between them. "Absolutely," she said with determination. "We faced it together and we'll keep doing it." But even as the words left her mouth, doubt gnawed at her insides. The wind picked up, carrying whispers from the field, a chilling reminder of what lurked behind them. Yet they pressed on. Then suddenly, a figure emerged in the distance, standing just before the line of the cornfield. It was Mr. Thompson. There was something in his eyes, an abyss of understanding mixed with sorrow. "You've seen what's out there," he said, his voice steady and resonant. "But it's not over for either of you." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, heart racing again. "You may have escaped, But the shadows will always find a way back, Mr. Thompson warned, glancing back toward the field behind him. This place is tethered to darkness, held by an ancient curse. The corn is alive, and it remembers. Sarah felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling of dread coiling around her. Then what do we do? Tommy asked, his small voice cutting through the uncomfortable silence. Face the roots of the nightmare, Mr. Thompson replied, nodding toward the cornfield. But first, you need to stand strong against the tides of darkness. Remember, you have the power of love. It's what brought you this far. You have to take it to fight back. As she studied his weathered face, she felt the strength in her resolve blooming, the determination not just to protect her son, but to free Maplewood from the curse that had tainted it for so long. Together, Tommy. We face it together, she said, feeling a surge of defiance. The shadows twitched in the distance, but she faced them without faltering. Let us go home, and then we find a way to break this cycle, she declared, tugging Tommy along. With each step, they left the shadows behind, making their way toward the heart of Maplewood, aware a defining confrontation awaited. A triumphant heat started to rise within her. Soon they would claim their power back. A new day would come, and she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Before she walked away, she paused, turning to Mr. Thompson. Thank you for watching over us. We can't forget. His eyes softened. You won the fight isn't over, but you'll fight like a mother. Just remember, the strongest roots are born from love. As they continued onward, the nearing shadows lingered behind them, but felt less menacing now. They had a purpose, a shared mission. The ties that bound them to the darkness would sever. It was only a matter of time. No one would come between a mother and her son, not now, not ever. They moved forward firmly, taking steps not just into the unknown but into the promise of hope. Sarah knew it would not be easy, but she also understood that they would battle together, side by side, fueled by love's unyielding power. And as they left the cursed land behind, she promised herself she would make sure that this haunting story would end here and now. Tommy smiled at his mother, and in that moment, they both felt the intoxicating scent of freedom rising in their hearts like fresh spring air. The shadows did not stand a chance against the light of their bond. Now it was time to reclaim everything. This was just the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.